The sign goes up on a Tuesday. You paid someone $340 to install it. You stood in the parking lot and watched them do it and felt something you couldn't name yet. You will spend the next several years figuring out what that feeling actually was. Level 1, the first location. You signed the franchise agreement in a conference room that wasn't yours, with a pen that wasn't yours, for the right to operate a business inside a system that will never be yours. The franchise fee was $45,000. The build out was $280,000. The working capital requirement was another $80,000. You have run these numbers every night for 4 months before signing. The training is 10 days in a city you've never been to. You learn the system. The system is thorough and tells you exactly how to make the product, manage the labor, run the inventory, greet the customer. It tells you everything except how to feel when you realize it was designed for the franchisor, not for you. You don't realize that yet. You're still in training. Your first day open, 6:47 a.m. You are there before your employees. You will be there before your employees every day for the next 11 months. The morning rush is real. The lunch rush is real. The margins are not what the item 19 suggested. Close enough that you don't panic. Far enough that you do math in the shower. You tell people you own a business. You do, technically. You own a business the way a tenant owns an apartment. Everything in it is yours. The lease on the idea belongs to someone else. You don't think about that yet. You are too busy. Busy is the thing that keeps you from thinking about it. This is not an accident. Level 2, the operator. It is 11:14 p.m. on a Wednesday. You are mopping. The person who was supposed to do it called out. You have a health inspection tomorrow. This is what owners do. You have not taken a day off in 6 weeks. Your spouse has stopped asking when things will settle down because the answer has been the same for 6 weeks and they have learned to read it in your face before you give it. The answer is not yet. Your labor cost is running at 34%. It needs to be at 28%. You know exactly which 6 shifts to cut. You know exactly which employees those shifts belong to. One of them has been with you since opening day. One of them has a kid. You make the cuts on a Friday, so they have the weekend to process it somewhere that isn't your store. You tell yourself, this is business. You are not wrong. You are also not entirely right. But you don't have time to examine the distance between those two things because you have a 6 a.m. delivery tomorrow, and the walk-in is 2 degrees above where it should be. You are learning what ownership actually is. It is not the sign in the parking lot. It is this: the mop, the math, the Friday conversation. Level 3. The first real manager. You find her in March. 4 years managing a competitor's location. Organized, direct, slightly intimidating. You hire her at $52,000 a year, and it is the best money you have ever spent. The first Saturday, you don't go in. You check the sales dashboard 14 times before noon. Everything is fine. Nothing requires you. The business is open and making money, and you are not there. And it doesn't need you to be there, and you don't know how to feel about that. That feeling is what you were actually buying when you started this. You just didn't know it would take this long to arrive, or that it would feel more like loss than freedom when it did. You now make decisions about the business instead of inside it. The distinction sounds small. It is not small. It is the entire difference between owning a job and owning a business. You have been in the first category for 18 months. You have just crossed into the second, level 4. The second location, the second one nearly kills the first one. Your attention splits, and the halving shows up in the numbers at location 1 within 6 weeks. Sales down 4%. Customer satisfaction scores down 11 points. You notice in month 3 when your manager sits across from you and says she needs more support or a raise or both. She says it without ultimatum because she doesn't need one. You both know she is the business. You give her The raise and restructure your week so you are physically present in each location twice rather than reactive to whichever one is on fire. By month 8, location 2 is profitable. Not enough to celebrate, enough to be dangerous. Because profitable means you are already looking at the third. This is the thing about the model that nobody warns you about. It is designed to make the next location feel like the obvious next step. It always feels like the obvious next step. That feeling is also not an accident. Level 5. The multi-unit operator, 7 locations. You have not worked a shift in 14 months. Your gross revenue is $8.4 million annually. Your net is $620,000. The math sounds extraordinary until you understand that $8.4 million moves through your operation every year, and most of it belongs to someone else. The franchisor royalty is 6% of gross, $504,000 a year for the right to operate under the sign you paid $340 to install. You understand for the first time what the model really is. The franchisor grows using other people's capital, other people's labor, other people's local knowledge. Their risk is low. Their return is structural. They get paid whether you profit or not. The royalty is on revenue, not profit. You can lose money and still owe it. You file this understanding away without acting on it because the system is still working, and the alternative is starting from nothing, and you know what that costs. The franchise fee bought you a shorter path. You paid for that shorter path, and you will continue paying for it every month for the life of the agreement. At 7 locations, you have become a different kind of operator. You think in systems now. When a location underperforms, you don't ask what went wrong. You ask which part of the system broke down. The question is different. The answer is always findable. That is the thing the system gave you that you didn't expect. Level 6, the regional player, 23 locations, a director of operations, an HR coordinator, a lawyer on retainer. You have built a company that runs franchises. This is not the same thing as running a franchise. The distinction took 4 years and $2.1 million in mistakes to understand. The franchisor knows your name now, not because you have a relationship, because you are a significant percentage of their unit count in your region. You are seated near the front at the annual conference. The VP of Franchise Development is very interested in your growth plans. The franchisor makes more money when you open more locations. It is useful to understand the shape of that relationship clearly. You close 1 location this year, a trade area the site selection model said was viable. You negotiate the exit, pay the buyout, absorb the write-down, you do the autopsy, and change the criteria for the next opening. You do not waste time on the grief of it. Your family has a house in a neighborhood you could not have imagined at location 1. You take 2 weeks in August. You check the dashboard every morning from wherever you are. You will check the dashboard every morning for the rest of your career. This is not a burden. It is just what you are now. Level 7. The franchisor's partner. 41 locations. You are the largest franchisee in the system. You sit in a room in the franchisor's corporate office, not the conference room for franchisees, the room where the actual decisions are made. You are the only person at the table who doesn't work for the franchisor. You are there because you have $47 million in gross annual system sales, and they need to know if the new pricing architecture will work before rolling it out to 1,200 units. Your assessment identifies a flaw 2 of the 3 brand owners haven't acknowledged. They nod and take notes. The pricing architecture is adjusted. Your fingerprints are on a decision that affects every franchisee in the system. You drive home and stop for gas and stand in a parking lot in a suburb of a city you used to live close to and think about the person who signed the franchise agreement for the first location in a conference room that wasn't theirs. The expected feeling is arrival. The actual feeling is a low, continuous pressure and the specific alertness of someone who has become too visible to make mistakes. Level 8. The portfolio operator. 3 private equity firms have approached you in 18 months. You don't sell, you use the valuation to restructure your debt. The bank that previously required you to justify your creditworthiness now calls you. You acquire a troubled franchisee's 14 locations at a discount. They couldn't manage the operation. You can. Total count 61 locations across 2 states. You add a second brand. Your ops director has built a system that can run multiple brands on the same infrastructure. The efficiencies are real. The complexity is also real. The number you think about is not revenue anymore. It is EBITDA multiple. You are building toward an exit you have not yet decided to take. The building and the deciding are separate processes, and you are deliberately keeping them that way. Some nights you try to remember the last time you thought about a single location, the way you thought about every detail of the first one. You can't place it exactly. Somewhere around location 12, the individual locations stopped being locations and started being units. You don't know the exact moment. Nobody does. Level 9, the system insider, 16 years, 79 locations across 3 brands. You sit on the franchisee advisory council. You meet the franchisor CEO twice a year in a meeting that is officially advisory and is actually negotiation. You know things about the system that the franchisor does not want known publicly. Which markets are oversaturated? Which site selection models are optimistic in ways that benefit the franchisor's development numbers and harm franchisee profitability? You know, because you have the data across 79 locations and 16 years. New franchisees call you. They have your name from the reference list. They are where you were at location 1, running the numbers. They ask if it is worth it. You tell them the system works if you work the system. You tell them the first year is harder than the disclosure document suggests. You tell them to negotiate the lease harder than they think they need to. You do not tell them what it costs, not in money. The other cost, the one that accumulates so slowly across 16 years that you only notice it when someone asks a question that the version of you at location 1 would have answered differently. You don't tell them because you are not certain they would believe you, and because you are not certain you would have believed it either standing in that first parking lot watching someone install a sign. Level 10. The apex. The franchisor needs you more than you need them. Not as ego, as fact. You control $94 million in annual system sales, 79 locations, 1,840 employees. When your locations underperform, the brand metrics suffer. When they outperform, the franchisor uses your numbers to sell the system to people exactly like you were at level 1. You are in a room with the board, not as a guest, as a counterparty. They are considering a private equity sale. They need your re-signature on the franchise agreements. Without it, the valuation changes. Everyone in the room knows this. You re-sign. The terms are different from the original agreement. Lower royalty rate. Right of first refusal on new territories. An advisory seat with a non-ceremonial function. You negotiated these not because you were clever, but because you became too large for the standard terms. You built your empire inside someone else's house. Then you became the reason the house is worth what it is worth. Your driver takes you to the airport. On the way, your phone shows a notification. A location in the outer ring of the portfolio is running labor at 36% for the 3rd consecutive week. You forward it to your ops director with one line. He will handle it before morning. You think about the mop, the 11:14 p.m. on the Wednesday before the health inspection, the walk-in thermometer, the $340 sign. You don't feel nostalgia exactly. You feel the specific weight of the distance between that parking lot and this car. Somewhere tonight, a person is in a conference room that isn't theirs, signing with a pen that isn't theirs. They have run the numbers every night for 4 months. They don't know what the document doesn't say. Nobody does at that table. On that night, you didn't. They will close the pen, drive to the location, sit in the parking lot, and feel something they cannot name yet. They think they are buying a business. They'll find out.